Welcome to that Jiu Jitsu podcast. My name is Justin Lesko, and my goal is to make your Jiu Jitsu a little bit better every single day. And the day that I'm recording this is the day before I am going to be competing in a sub-only super fight, and I have a lot of thoughts. So I figured I would talk into a microphone about them and maybe help you get ready for any competition you have coming up. And whether you're someone that competes all the time or you've never competed before, I think I have some good advice for you. So let's dive right into it. Welcome to that Jiu Jitsu podcast. Now, before we really get into it, I want to remind you that you do not need to compete in Jiu Jitsu in order to be good at Jiu Jitsu. I love to compete. It's one of my favorite things in the world, and getting your hand raised after a win is the best high there ever was, and I will continue to chase that dragon forever. But if that's not for you, if you don't like it, you don't need to compete. I think you should. I think everyone should. I think it's good to compete. But if you don't like competing in jiu-jitsu, then just don't do it. Jiu-jitsu should be fun and it should be your hobby. So if there's something about it you don't like, don't do that thing. I have competed a lot over a decade and a half in this sport, and I still get very, very, very nervous. And right now, because I'm competing tomorrow, I am feeling very nervous. And I think that it is okay to be nervous. We'll call that tip number one. It's okay to be nervous. The trick is you can't let that nervousness impact you. You have to maybe use that as like a fuel and recognize that the reason you're feeling nervous is because you care and because you want to win. If you weren't nervous at all, that probably wouldn't be a good sign. So I think accepting you're going to be nervous, embracing being nervous is a good way to approach it, and don't hide from that nervousness. It is okay. Now, part of the reason that I'm able to record this today instead of cutting a bunch of weight is because I don't cut a bunch of weight for tournaments or for super fights like this. I don't think it's really beneficial, and yeah, I might be giving up size advantage, and I might be a little bit smaller than the person I'm competing against or the persons I'm competing against in a tournament, but I think you get to a point of diminished returns with cutting a ton of weight. Especially if it's same day weigh-ins, or it's one of those things where you weigh in, you get off the scale, and then you go on the mat to compete. You're just not going to perform your best if you're super dehydrated and you're not properly fueled. So I think that what you maybe give up in size and strength is less of a disadvantage than what would happen if you were super dehydrated trying to perform your best in an athletic competition. I know some people are really good at cutting weight. I know some people really like it and cut a huge amount of weight for tournaments and jiu-jitsu matches, but that's just not me. I would advise against it. I don't think it's worth it. If you disagree, that's fine. Do what you're going to do. I'm not your dad, but I would say don't do it. If you are going to cut a bunch of weight, and even if you're not cutting a bunch of weight, it's very important to be hydrated and fueled correctly. Now, if you're cutting a bunch of weight, it's going to depend on how much time you have between getting off the scale and actually competing to tell how much you're going to be able to get back in and how much you're going to be able to refuel. But if you're cutting zero weight, that doesn't mean you also shouldn't focus on your fueling strategy and your hydration. You should be well hydrated. You should be well fueled. Carbs are your friend. You need carbs in our sport to be able to perform at the highest level. I think a keto or low carb diet sucks. I hate it, and it's just not the fuel source that your body needs for this kind of competition. So make sure you're fueled appropriately. If you're going to a tournament, you need to plan ahead, and you need to know you're going to be there for a very long period of time. So don't show up to a tournament having just had breakfast and having brought no food with you and expecting that fuel from breakfast to carry you through the day. Fueling is very personal, and you have a lot of personal preferences on about what you like to eat and what makes you feel good and able to perform. I know exactly what I like to eat, and we can talk about that in another episode, but plan ahead for your fueling and your hydration. And in terms of planning ahead and packing and all of the things that you need to bring with you, make a list a few days before of what you need on the day. And that way, when you're packing and getting ready to leave, you're not scrambling around trying to remember everything that you need to bring with you. And a good trick that I learned from triathlon is instead of packing your bag and then having to go, oh wait, did I pack this XYZ thing? And then completely unpack your bag to find it. Before you put everything in your bag, lay it all out on your floor or on your bed or whatever and take a picture of it. And then immediately put all that stuff into your bag. And then later, when you feel like, oh, did I remember to bring my mouthpiece? You don't have to unpack your entire bag. You can just look at the picture, see that your mouthpiece was there, and know that you put it in the bag. Planning what you're going to take and taking a photo of it before you pack it will save you so much of a headache on the day of competition. Make sure you take care of that step. The day before you compete, it will be difficult for you to sleep. Especially if you're a very nervous person, like I tend to get very nervous, like we previously talked about. Sleep can be hard the night before, but that shouldn't bug you out. It's fine. Like if you don't get a great night's sleep beforehand, you can still perform very well. Adrenaline is a powerful drug and will help you when you're competing. If you're not getting good sleep beforehand, like the night before, that's okay. If you're not getting good sleep in your life for like weeks at a time, you might be having some problems, and that might be a separate issue for a separate day. Try to get as much sleep as you can. Maybe go to bed a little bit earlier the night before. But again, if you don't get a great night's sleep beforehand, that doesn't mean you will lose. It won't work super against you as much as you think it will. Sleep is important, but one night of bad sleep before competing, it's all right. Whenever I'm describing jiu-jitsu tournaments to someone who doesn't know anything about jiu-jitsu, I always describe the day as hurry up and wait. So for this thing tomorrow, this event that I'm doing, I have to be there by 4 for weigh-ins, and then the photos are at 5, and the rules meeting is at 5:30, and then the first match is at 6, and then I'll probably compete 3 hours after that. So I will be there for a long time before I compete. You have to get there at specific times and make sure you're there. Hurry up and get there, but then once you're there, it's a lot of waiting around. So plan for that. Plan for waiting around a long time. Bring something to do with you and try not to focus only on your match for like 7 hours at a time before it happens. It's just too mentally exhausting. Plan on waiting around for a long time. Now, as it's getting closer to your match and you're getting ready to warm up, I think there's a couple different schools of thought. What I like to do is I like to do a good dynamic warm up. I like to start with something that elevates my heart rate, like a jump rope or a quick jog if there's space to do that. I like to get all of my joints moving and feeling like my body is loosened up. I do not like to grapple any rounds before my first match. It's just, I don't like it. It doesn't benefit me at all, and I feel like I perform just as good on the very first match of the night versus if I'm going out there to compete 3 or 4 matches deep because I rolled with teammates in the back. I also know there are people who cannot get going until they're 3 or 4 matches in with a good sweat, so they roll as much as they can in the back. It's personal preference. I don't like it. It doesn't work for me, but you need to know what works for you. I do think it's important that in training, you follow a similar warm-up pattern to what you're going to do on the day of competition. You don't want to get to competition and then kind of throw something new at your body and maybe it throws you off a little bit. I'm not super into like superstition and making sure everything is exactly the right way or else I don't feel good. I do think that routines matter though, and patterns matter. And if your body goes through the same pattern every time, you're just preparing it to optimally perform. So find what warm-up works for you and do that every time. I don't like to roll a bunch. That's just me. I know that might be weird, but try it. See how it works for you. I am very guilty of over visualization. I like to think about the match. I like to think how it's going to play out. I like to explore all avenues of what I think might happen or what I want to happen. That can work against you. If you are someone who likes to visualize, that's great. I think it's important, but I've seen it a lot where people visualize so much, they only visualize one thing. And then when that one thing doesn't happen, they're all thrown off. If you only visualize yourself going out there and hitting a takedown and working to pass, and then the guy pulls guard right away and you're in a weird spot you weren't expecting to be, maybe it throws you off. Or maybe you get taken down and now you don't know what to do because you've only visualized one thing and your brain is all thrown off. So if you're going to visualize the match, visualize everything that can happen. It can be a good tool, but don't overdo it because you're going to trip yourself up later on down the road. I think it's also important to remember that no one cares about this more than you do. I think sometimes we put external pressure on ourselves like, oh, my coach will be mad if I lose, or my teammates will be disappointed, or the people who came to watch me will be unhappy if I lose. No one will care if you lose. I've won matches, I've lost matches. No one cares. Everyone's life just continues to go on. The person who cares most about it is you. So compete as hard as you can for yourself, but try to remove that external pressure of wanting to please outside people or you want other people to be happy that you won. Everyone will be happy that you win. No one will care if you lose. So don't put so much pressure on yourself that it hinders your performance. And I think that brings me sort of to the last tip, which is just to enjoy it. Like I said in the intro, I love to compete. I love to win. My wife will tell you that I'm the most competitive person in the world. I need to win. I love to win. That makes competition a lot of fun for me. It also can bring me down pretty hard if I lose. So I try to enjoy the competition itself as much as the result. Enjoy being out there, enjoy testing yourself, do everything you can to win, but try to enjoy it and have fun while you're doing it. I personally have better jiu-jitsu when I'm having fun with my jiu-jitsu, and if I'm so focused on only doing specific things to try to win, it's not as much fun. Please have fun when you're competing. So there you have it. I'm not sure how many tips that was because I didn't write any of these down. I was just trying to think of what all the things I'm feeling and trying to plan for tomorrow. And I'm also sort of distracted by the fact that I am competing tomorrow. So I hope this was helpful. If it was, maybe you could do me a favor and share this episode with someone who you know is competing soon, or maybe who is on the fence about competing, and maybe this can push them over the edge and answer any questions that they have. By now, the video of the match I'm going to do tomorrow should already be out by the time you're listening to this. And if you've listened this far into the episode, I appreciate it. I will put the match video in the episode notes below, so check that video out. Thanks as always for listening. I will see you all next time.